Berluti are designing the Olympic opening ceremony outfits for obviously the French team, which I actually have a lot to say. I will read the article, but I will just like give my thoughts and show you guys the pictures of these opening ceremony outfits. But obviously the whole outfit is in the French colors. You've got a bit of blue, you've got a bit of red, you've got a bit of white. But that being said, it's very interesting for many reasons. First of all, we know that LVMH is one of the sponsors of these Olympics. It makes so much sense because the Olympics are in Paris and LVMH basically runs Paris at this point. I also think something that's really interesting is the fact that this might be the most fashion-forward, fashion-specific Olympics we've ever seen. A lot of LVMH brands are designing these sort of outfits for different countries. A lot of them are designing our kit sponsors, like brands that literally have no pedigree designing sportswear becoming kit sponsors in the LVMH stable. And of course, Berluti is a brand in the LVMH stable, so it makes so much sense for them to design sort of the French outfits. Something I found really interesting also is the fact that Karine Rotfeld also worked on this. So I think she was a consultant and she did some of the styling too. The whole French fashion brigade is involved in this Paris Olympics. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how it unfolds. I certainly will not be attending the Paris Olympics because one, I certainly won't be able to afford it. If you see the hotel prices and Airbnb prices during that week, insanity. And there's also like the government said they would double the metro prices during the time when the Olympics happens. So yeah, I certainly do not have the money to be going to Paris during the Olympics, but I shall be watching very with a lot of intrigue from my bedroom and my living room and talking about it in live streams. So yeah, I think the whole thing as it unfolds is very interesting. What do you guys think about Berluti sort of designing these outfits? I also think that because Berluti is a brand that in a lot of ways is a brand that flies under the radar in the LVMH stable, they've tried so many times to try to make it like mainstream with the likes of Haider Ackermann. Most recently, we saw Chris Van Ash go to Berluti and be a creative director there. But still, something about Berluti, it hasn't really caught on in the mainstream. And I think this might be an attempt to bring Berluti to the mainstream, because when I was thinking about, you know, why did Berluti design this of all the LVMH brands? They could have made Dior design it. They could have made, you know, any other French brand that they own could have designed it, like Givenchy. Why did they specifically decide Berluti that's like lesser known? I feel like it's this attempt to bring the name Berluti back into the mainstream. So that's something that really came to mind and something I found really interesting. So I don't know much about Berluti, but they're saying it because these look like sixth form blazers and flight attendant drip. Oh my God, it does look like flight attendant drip. Do you know what's funny? This reminds me of like the British Airways uniform. Like, I'm not even trying to be mean or anything. I like it, but I'm just saying it just reminds me of the British Airways uniform for some weird reason. Like when I saw it, I just thought British Airways. But yeah, Berluti is like their heritage is in making leather goods. Very menswear specific. Most recently they make like, you know, leather footwear, leather bags, and then even more recently they went into ready to wear. So there was a point in time when Berluti didn't even make any ready to wear. It was just leather goods, mainly footwear, and they've sort of expanded like every brand does, like every luxury brand does. That's my quick summary on Berluti. Yola says, at least you should go back to just doing shoes. Oh my God. Oh my. People are saying flight core, pilot core. Like literally, like, let me see if let's see, British Airways uniform. I can't be kidding, guys. It kinda reminds me of the British Airways uniform in a weird way. But flight core is just crazy. Calling it flight core is jokes. Welcome on your flight, British Airways to JFK. Someone said the BA uniforms look better. Oh my God. What I will say is though, because this is a monumental moment, like Paris Olympics, sponsored by LVMH, they could have picked any brand to design it. You would think that the designs would be a bit more interesting. But whether you like the designs or you don't, I think my interest was more in the fact that it just seems like a ploy for LVMH to kind of strategically, and that's why I'm going to be watching closely during the Olympics what brand does what, because I really want to know what brands they push where and what brands they market in certain places to see if they're trying to like push brands that are lesser known more forward, and then they put the bigger known brands like the Louis Vuittons in the backseat because people already know what it is. So yeah, it'll be really good. I also want to know how much they're spending sponsoring the Olympics. I really want to know how much that costs.
The bit about the Olympic uniforms, man, it's hard. It's hard because like you're dealing with a different vocabulary because that's the thing that like I think a lot of people have a struggle with is that like with
Mm,
athletes' bodies, like you're just dealing with proportions that are not necessarily always kind of congruent with what we associate with high fashion silhouettes and
mm-hmm,
like sort of like ways that like you kind of associate these ready to wear pieces being displayed on these like 6 head tall models and such. 6, 7, 8 head tall models. Because once you kind of get away from those dress forms, you can kind of see how the sort of uniform and kind of tailoring that you kind of associate for some reason with the traditional athlete wear, whether it's in the NBA or wherever, uh,
mm-hmm.
and it becomes hard to like build a vocabulary that like can cross over in a way that doesn't appear kneecapped in some way.
Yeah.
I think the best kind of collaborations that I've seen with sports people, including like what Yoji Yanomoto regularly does, and like what you see with like a lot of what Ismiyaki does, is they kind of work with prints. They work with more abstract patterns and stuff that like shows up at a distance and can kind of read well from like a wide camera perspective. And any sort of like play with like elements of formal wear, like especially the shawl collar, I think just kind of seems incongruous with like the
Yeah.
event, regardless of it being formal wear or not. Like I can imagine these people like in a smoking gown with those kinds of collars, but not necessarily something that would show up
Yeah,
on
I
screen.
mean there are no rules. Like you don't have to wear formal wear to the opening ceremony because people wear all sorts of different things.
Mhm.
Um, so it's very interesting that they went for that. Especially it seems like the women have the sleeveless versions and the men have the versions with sleeves. Pretty
Yeah, that was
interesting.
definitely, I think, kind of interesting. I would have enjoyed seeing everybody kind of sleeveless and give some sort of figure to everybody. Because I'm not going to
Yeah,
say that those men's jackets were particularly well cut.
yeah.
I
It
really
feels
don't like
like it may have been like a time situation. I don't know if they measured and dressed everybody with more than like a rush. Feels rushed to me.
Hmm.
mm, I've been hearing, I said it a bit in the chat actually. I've been hearing interesting things about this Olympics because I have some friends who live in Paris by one of these like main stadiums where the events are supposed to be. And she says like the area she lives in is the ghetto. And like I remember for the London one, they spent like tons of money trying to like gentrify the area and make it fancy for the Olympics. But she
Like
was saying it's the
Stratford and
kind of
stuff.
place, yeah. She was saying it's the kind of place where people have like a lot of like like market stalls where everyone's selling like fake Gucci and stuff like that. So that's like one of those kind of areas. So she's really curious what's gonna happen when all the tourists come and like everyone with their like market stalls are like blocking the way, not letting people get into the stadium and blah blah blah. Because apparently the police have been telling them to move over the last few months and like no one's moving.
Oh yeah, I mean you hear stories about that sort of like social chaos that can kind of come with one of these events. They say that whenever you like hosting the Olympics is like a natural disaster for a city. Like if it ever rarely recovers.
That's actually true though. It's actually true. That's quite
Like
cool.
London actually handled it really well because we actually
Very well.
benefited a lot from the Olympics in terms of like the after. It's normally after where countries struggle, but we just like we built the Copper Box Arena, which became the stadium for the London Lions, and then the London Lions became a really big like basketball team, and they started playing in like the Euro Cup. And then we had the London Aquatic Centre that became the training centre for like everything swimming, and all the big swimming competitions happened there. Like almost every single thing that they built, they found, like the Olympic Stadium became West Ham's football stadium. They just found a useful use for like all the things they built.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I think I saw a bunch around the Olympic Village in Barcelona when I was over there. It's just a matter of like, you know, what anything can happen, right?
2012 Olympics was the last nice time this country ever had. Damn. So it's been downhill since
Pre-Brexit
then.
days.
Boris Johnson telling all of us to stay home while he was partying with his friends and having coffee with his whole family. You know, that was before the clown show.
He was at the memorial I was at the other day, you know.
What, Boris?
Yeah. He spoke and everything. It was mad.
Yeah. I mean, that was before the government clown show that the UK has become, before we had Boris Johnson get kicked out, then Liz Truss decimated
For like how many weeks was she in again, Liz Truss?
She was only in for like, it wasn't even 2 months, was it? It was almost
I
2
think
months.
she did it for the paycheck, 100%.
She managed to destroy.
She did it for the paycheck, 100%. Because it's 100K for the rest of your life. Yeah.
I remember that. Clap for the NHS. I remember that. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club, where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.